Hi, DHQ here. Welcome to the third episode of Below the Surface Culture Makers. This is a series of podcasts which explore culture underneath the surface of daily life to find out what's being produced, how it happens, and more importantly, why. The exciting and positive things that we might not notice as we go about day to day, but which quietly contribute to our culture.
It's just another day, gotta keep on keeping on.
Well, today's podcast is about an art installation at Hosier Lane Melbourne to celebrate International Women's Day. I need to tell you that in this podcast there is some discussion of violence against women, so if you feel you might be adversely affected by this discussion, please listen no further. And there's also one swear word. I'm at Hosier Lane and a group of people are meeting at 10 o'clock. We're waiting for the arrival of Dan's Bain, the protagonist of today's gathering. Ah, here she is.
They're here.
Yay! It's the 8th of March 2020 and we are here to celebrate International Women's Day by installing artwork in Hosier Lane. Dan's Bain invited me to join in this year and I was very excited to be involved because I had seen on Facebook what her and a collective of mothers had installed last year. I also invited some of my own friends to come along as well. I asked Dan's Bain what the aim of today is. So what are you doing here?
It's International Women's Day, and for the third year running we're installing work with a feminist voice. So work that's about equality, gender equality, inclusivity, diversity, and just sort of taking up space for women when it's a pretty male-dominated art form, street art. Just anyone, non-binary, female identifying, anyone can come along every day on International Women's Day.
Yeah, so it's just become an every year thing now.
Yeah.
I was interested in why, why putting up stuff in Hosier Lane, and you only do this once a year? Do you do street art any other time of year?
No, because I've got a toddler and I'm 31 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
So ideally, yes, I would, but street art kind of started more for me here.
Yeah. So it's Hosier Lane. Why is it Hosier Lane?
I guess because it's such a public platform. Everybody comes here, everybody knows. I guess this is the leaping off point for street art in Melbourne. And it changes so dramatically from week to week. So, and a lot of contentious issues are posted up in here, a lot of political issues. So there's often political artwork here. So, that's why we're here.
And do you think there's often political artwork here because there's a feeling that you can come and post here?
Yeah, I think because the space is one of the few spaces in Melbourne where you can come and you're not going to get in trouble with posting work in public.
Yeah.
And anyone can come here and put work up.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a highly skilled artist.
You can hear plenty of noise in the background, particularly laughter, but also children. These are the sounds of installing. There are children participating in this install. There are also partners here, even grandparents. And then besides us, there are the ever-present tourists and visitors to Hosier Lane. Other noises include birds, the bells of St Paul's Cathedral nearby, and planes flying overhead. Oh, and there's also the noise from a retail outlet which has an entrance opening out halfway down Hosier Lane.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm splashing you.
No, that's all right.
I'll leave that for now, and then when it dries a bit, I'll put some more on.
Very soon after the arrival of Dan's, the install begins, and you can hear the slip-slop of the glue in the bucket, the sounds of the paintbrush brushing the wall, discussions about where to put things, as well as the delightful sounds of children. You can also hear people sharing ideas and discussing how to approach the install. You can prepare all you like, but it's always a different story when you're at the site. The unexpected and unforeseen is an important aspect of public space. There is also the existing graffiti and the structure of the buildings to work with. There are choices about where to put the artwork, such as whether to install at eye level or lower where it is less likely to.
Alright, isn't it? Did I have an extra brush? I didn't end up looking any bad. I think I just grabbed one in your bucket. Okay.
We are up at the top end of Hosier Lane. Dan's has installed a large paste up and I ask her about what she has created. And you just put up your statues now, your monuments, haven't you?
Yeah, monument to women,
Yeah.
pioneering women. So that's the lack of monuments to females, women, both in Melbourne and internationally.
And you've got a scan code on one of them. Is that so?
Yeah.
Have you made a website that matches it?
So that one is, so this is the first one that I did, where I started, and that's a tribute to kind of everyday women. So the one on the left was a housemate who's very capable with a pregnant belly and a drill.
Yeah.
So she's just kind of an everyday kind of woman. And the one on the right is Narelle Gretsch, who was my best friend, and she worked tirelessly for people who are donor conceived. And so the little QR code is for a petition at the moment on change.org. So recently some donor offspring went to the UN. It was the Convention of the Child, and they all spoke.
Oh, wow.
And these are the new laws that they're trying to bring in for donor offspring human rights. So that's where that links in.
And you've got Stella Young,
Auntie Pam, and Mama Alter.
Yeah.
Everybody knew how. I saw you.
This idea of celebrating particular women and drawing attention to their story is used by a few of the artists today. Deborah Wood is a friend of mine who often does paste up artwork. She has travelled 2 hours to join us here today. Deb has digitally created artworks using images of women and placing them into the centre of traditional dinner plates that she has also photographed, such as Wedgwood and Royal Dalton. So the women are framed by the decorative oval edges of the plates. There are about 23 of these images, and Deborah has printed them out onto paper and also has separate strips of paper which bears sentences to provide information about the women on each plate.
This is Ethel McDonald.
Yeah.
She is the one who got arrested for talking about in the early 1900s for disseminating obscene material about family planning in New York. This is Irish mothers, wives, daughters, during the Troubles. They would go out onto the pavement and bang lids on the floor on the ground to let their husbands know that the police, the British troops were on their way. So, in general, these are all...
They've all got stories.
They're all women, and I've actually tried to find quite a lot of photos where the women are anonymous. Some of them are not. This is Sophie Scholl. This is Lipa Radek. They're sort of more known. They got executed because they were anti-Nazi partisans in Europe. So there's a few who are more well known, but otherwise I've just tried to find, you know, the women in the crowd who were being activists for, you know, good over 100 years and don't really get remembered as being activists. These are the Save Our Sons, average Melbourne housewives in the 1960s and 70s who did this for years.
And it reads Weekly Vigil for Peace in Vietnam. Yeah.
And they did that for 5 or 6 years throughout the whole Vietnam War to stop conscription.
Yeah.
And that at the time they were considered naive and sort of bimbos and just silly old housewives, just like this lot. This is one where these are the wives of fishermen in Hull in England, and they were known as the headscarf revolutionaries. But they did this also, protested for years to improve safety and health conditions after 3 fishing boats sank with loss of lives. So, you know, there's lots of stories. This is the wonderful Sandra Onus, Gunditjmara woman, who now is protesting against the loss of the birthing trees up near Ararat. But this is when she and Christina Franklin took on Alcoa in the 80s, well before Mabo, and prevented them from installing stuff on Gunditjmara land. So all these stories, you know. So I just sort of thought, these are commemorative plates. Let's remember.
Oh, that's what I forgot.
Some of them.
Yeah, the images are on
I've
plates.
actually ripped them off places like Wedgwood and Royal Dalton because of their colonialist assumptions that are there. These are Greek partisans. Who knew that half the resistance in the war were women?
Deb said that looking at the photographs of these women gives you a window of connection with them. It becomes a person, not just a story.
So much of them are so funny, some of the stories. Like, see this one here. This was just the Lee Jeans factory in Scotland. And so these women, they were going to close the factory down. There about 240 of them just barricaded themselves in there. But the funny little part of the story is that 2 of them climbed down the roof and down the drain pipe and went off and got fish and chips and brought them back for them. So I really like that sort of thing, you know.
I saw you, I saw you, I saw you.
I found a really important part of this group install was the ongoing discussions about each installation in regards to the methods of installing, but also how the meaning and information held in the artworks could be conveyed. This podcast is one of those ways, but there were also other things happening, such as conversations with other people in Hosier Lane who asked what the artists were doing. Now I'm speaking with Becca Hanna about her installations of today. So what are you doing here, Becca?
So I embroidered doilies with a couple of my favourite inspirational feminist quotes from the last year. So this is Maya Angelou from her poem Still I Rise, and I think it's a really important quote about being pushed down and still getting up and rising and doing your best and all of that good stuff. And I chose to embroider them on doilies and stick them up because as a craft artist and as a female craft artist, I think doilies are a particularly overlooked or seen as a low form of art. So I think it's interesting to take that and then do something with it and put it in a public space.
And do you want to talk about how you've used, like in this one you've used 2 doilies, one on top of the other?
I have.
Yeah, so there's 2 sets of frills.
I decided that the first doily, the Still I Rise doily, was probably too small to be noticed, and so I embroidered that onto a second larger coloured frilly doily because I thought it would be fun to have a bit of colour. So I just stitched it down last night.
And you've siliconed it, and also I've noticed with the other one as well, like they both aesthetically match the backgrounds they're on.
They do, which
the
is very
background.
Very convenient.
Yeah, very convenient.
Very convenient of the street to provide me with not just a frame for it to go in, but also perfectly matched paintings on the background.
And I'm interested today how people feel in Hosier Lane. Like, how do you feel about coming and doing street art with a group of women?
I like coming and doing street art with a group of women. I don't do much street art. I stick things on the street very occasionally. but I think it's nice to be doing it with a group, and I think somewhere where you feel so kind of watched and observed, I think it's nicer to be a couple of people strong in a way.
Are you talking about the tourists or the cameras in this area?
Both,
Yeah.
I think. Thank you for pointing out those cameras that now I feel really weird about. But I mean, even the tourists' cameras I feel weird about.
Yeah.
I think it's that sort of strange thing about half expecting to see a photo on Instagram that you didn't sort of consent to. But
Yeah.
I do find it quite entertaining, the number of people having their photo taken with street art. The quintessential Melbourne laneway photo. So this is another doily. In this instance, I chose one that has small, delicate hand-embroidered flowers around the edge.
Yeah.
And this is text from Hannah Gadsby from her show Nanette, which is phenomenal. And it says, "There is nothing stronger than a broken woman who has rebuilt herself." For me, this I think is incredibly. I remember writing this down in my phone.
I was going to say,
when I
how did
watched
you
Nanette.
find that quote? You wrote it.
I wrote it down when I watched Nanette because I remembered that I loved it so much that it really sort of affected me. And I think it's a really positive quote for women who've been through really tough times, really down times, and you feel. I think it's very normal to feel broken, but I think it's nice to look at the positive of having rebuilt yourself and put yourself back together and being a different, better, stronger, potentially changed person, but still a completely valid one. It can be broken, but not permanently broken, I think is really important. Does that make sense?
And again, we discussed that the surrounding paint, like the background, actually works really well with your artwork, doesn't it?
Yes.
It kicks out the yellow.
It's got yellow, yeah. This is also stitched to a background because I wanted a frilly edge. So this is also stitched to a yellow and green doily. So it's got a nice green frilly edge, and the background on the paint, which is also kind of yellowish, blacky, greeny.
Yeah.
I think works really well.
Yeah, and also we discussed gluing this one, that you actually put a lot of glue in and you rubbed it, even the edges of the doily are glued on.
So I stuck a lot of silicone on the back of it, and then, I stuck a lot of silicone on the wall, and then I used a piece of cardboard to scrape it into the lace of the doily. And because this one's quite low, I thought that people might be more likely to try and nick it. So I tried to squish Larissa's trying to nick it already. So I squished a lot of the silicone through the edges of the doily to try and keep it on.
Yeah.
On Monday she went to the park. Everything was silent, everything was dark. On Tuesday she went to the zoo. Nothing mattered and everybody knew.
Now we're looking at some posters featuring an Aboriginal woman who was a bushranger called Yellalong, also known as Marianne Bugg. The posters say, "Yellalong, badass bushranger."
Fierce women in our Australian history.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you've actually put 3 posters up. They're 3 of the same, and they've got a photo of Yellalong, and it says Yellalong and then badass bushranger underneath. Yeah. And I was discussing with you as well why you only come today. You've come to Hosier Lane to do this, but you don't normally do this.
No. I guess this is the first time. I guess I'm doing it with friends.
Yeah.
And I guess with numbers, there's safety in numbers. And I guess this is always known as a very male space. So I think it's fantastic to be part of a feminist group, especially today. International Women's Day today. And just to make space for us as well. I guess I'm an artist, and there's always the unfortunate sort of stigma that if you post stuff up, you could be charged. So I guess because there's numbers and it's daylight, it seems to be safer. So,
Yes. And also you're with a group, so
Yeah.
you're not going to be, it's a Women's Day thing, so do you think you're not going to be charged because of that?
I don't know. We'll see. But I think what I understand, pay stubs aren't too intrusive in terms of fines, but we'll just see. I think that's the gamble we all take as artists. Inspired.
Oh, good. You've been inspired by
Yeah.
coming today. And
Yeah.
what has it inspired, do you think? been inspired
I reckon it's just as artists we need to speak up.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
That counts, doesn't it?
you know, you can go to street, you know, to see street art, and I think it's all becoming a bit too decorative.
Yes.
And you know, I went to a street art festival a couple of weeks ago, and it was just decorative. And there was one political piece by a Chinese artist.
Yeah.
So
This artist also raises the issue that we are doing something illegal. There seems to be a range of perspectives about whether Hosier Lane is a free-for-all. In reality, it is not legal to install in Hosier Lane without the building owner's permission. Hosier Lane also has cameras, which I point out to people. This is perhaps why in a recent act of paint bombing in February, the perpetrators wore masks. These artists came and sprayed the lane, and beside all of the discussions about whether their work was art or vandalism, which is also a discussion that could be had about all of the uncommissioned art in the lane, and also about what we are doing today, it was made into an issue that they painted the historic cobblestones. However, in a commissioned artwork in 2013 by Adrian Doyle, called Empty Nursery Blue, he did paint the cobblestones of the next lane over. And today, one of the children who is painting with the International Women's Day group has moved from painting the wall across to painting the historic cobblestones. Ottie's mum explains to me her reasoning for bringing her daughter in and encouraging her to paint in Hosier Lane, and I discover how this annual meeting as a group of installing in Hosier Lane began.
I just brought my kid along with some International Women's Day colours, purple and green, and then she's letting loose on the walls.
She's painting the walls. Oh, she's painting a couple of spots. Wow. And she's been painting for about 10 minutes, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's going hard at it.
And then
pretty dedicated.
What have you put that poster up?
No, this is our contribution.
Oh, it's just this painting.
Yeah.
Did you touch the wall?
I think I did a couple of handprints, but no, it's mainly my kid.
Do you want to? She's running away from me. So your whole intention in coming here is to show her that she can paint the wall.
We came down here. Actually, when I was pregnant with Ottie on the International Women's Day a couple of years ago, because we put up a work. I don't know if you know the history.
No, I wasn't here. No.
Yeah, we put up a work that was done by a crew in Wellington, an anti-rape banner, and we put it up right here where we're painting today, and some street art boys came and defaced it in a really degrading way. Sort of they became a pro-rape banner after their sort of work, and so we're just really sick of how Boise, the street art scene in Melbourne and internationally is, and so wanted to kick back against it. So after they did that defacing, we came with a crew on International Women's Day when I was pregnant with Ottie, and did just a heap of paste ups and installations and painting. And then last year Dan's took the reins and was organising the same thing on International Women's Day, which is awesome. And she's done it again this year. And I haven't made any work to put up aside from this child that I've raised.
It's just going, who's a better painting people, I think. Oh, so yes, you can use those, Possum. So I guess from what I'm getting this is that, when the first thing was put up and then it was defaced so badly, it sort of propelled the movement of coming back to Hosier Lane more strongly, do you think?
Yeah, that's why we're here. I mean, it's Hosier Lane is so iconic and problematic, in to all different sorts of, street artists for all different reasons, but it's definitely very blokey.
Yeah. She goes on to say that it's got that pissing on walls, marking territory feel about it, and it's got to do with who feels comfortable in public space. That artworks by women don't really get a look in here most of the time, so it's really neat to come down with a bunch of other women and feel comfortable. It was really interesting to note the reasons that women gave for not feeling comfortable in Hosier Lane. These include the cameras watching them, both surveillance and those of the tourists. Larissa said she was affected by aerosol paint fumes, something I had not even noticed because of my lack of sense of smell. Becca confirmed that it was pretty strong. Whilst we were in the lane, there was always someone else spraying fresh paint. At times it was difficult to move around and get past the tourists who were busy orchestrating their photographic proof of being in Hosier Lane. Ironically, as I was conducting the interview with Becca, we were interrupted by a tourist wanting to take a photo, who indicated she would like us to step away from where we were discussing Becca's artwork. We were in the way of their photograph. It's not only artists who want to be a part of Hosier Lane. I'm still looking at more installations by members of today's group, and I'm asking them what their work is about.
So basically, we've just used the message here to the strong women. May we know them, may we be them, and may we raise them. So it's the wings raising them. This is the women's symbol here, and the strength of the earth and the crystals and the flowers releasing the strength.
And you did this with your daughter.
We did this in a quick flash of.
One artist has made a portrait of Aruna Ramchandra Schonborg, who was a nurse in India. Aruna was raped at work one day and afterwards remained in a vegetative state for 42 years. Her attacker was never held to account for the rape. The artist wanted to do a portrait that would try to change her expression from that which we see in her usual photograph, and to give her a voice.
You know, all these anonymous women we just don't never know about, hear about, who never got a fair trial. Or I guess it's a way of, for me, kind of making sense of this horrible, distressing, upsetting information, and kind of acknowledging her as a person and maybe giving her another chance or another face.
Because she's quite. Did you paint this picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's quite sort of. She's thoughtful, and she's also a bit. There's a little edge of defiance in her, isn't it? It's very soft and subtle, but there's a little edge to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. She doesn't look happy, but she looks thoughtful and defiant in some way, and very calm.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I did lots of other styles. And in a lot of them really sort of tapping into the horror of the story, and really and they were really upsetting to look at, and they're very dark. But I chose to go with this style, which is very, very influenced by Margaret Kilgallen.
She's speaking of Margaret Kilgallen, an artist from San Francisco, California, who combined graffiti art, painting and installation art. This artist was influenced by her street art murals and the artworks that she did about women. I asked her why come to Hosier Lane today and install this. She saw Dan's post and thought it was a good way of celebrating International Women's Day, but also...
I really liked the fact that, we're celebrating it on International Women's Day, and for me it just felt like there's no pressure. It was more of a celebration. It wasn't about like impressing people or...
So it's not a normal street art action. It's a special day for it's part of something else.
And it felt accessible and inclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable coming down and doing this by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's really interesting. Why is that, do you think, that you don't feel comfortable coming to Hosier Lane doing it by yourself?
I'm 35, and I think I always associated, even though I knew of lots of women making street art, it just feels like a very masculine space. And I think, and just that thing of not wanting attention, not wanting, and feeling that sort of vulnerability as well, but knowing that
I sort of I felt like, you know, we could kind of come in under Dan's wing.
Are you going to be a street artist after this?
Maybe, yeah, I like it.
Do you think this opens up opportunities?
Definitely.
Because I was thinking about those little kids up there who have been painting the wall for 30 minutes. Like, is it something that changes the way they think about painting the wall later when they're adults?
I think so, and I think taking up public space.
I think what's really interesting is that a lot of the artworks being installed have long backstories. They're often projects that the artists have been thinking about or working on, and the install at Hosier Lane provides this place and time to install and share them. But actually what is installed is just a glimpse or the front door of a project that goes much deeper. Some of these installations were conjured up the night before, while others have much longer histories, or they are inspired by existing projects which celebrate women. For example, one artist has created her own extension of Know My Name. Know My Name is a project of the National Gallery of Australia which celebrates the contributions of Australian women artists. So have you got 3 pieces of cardboard that say Know My Name? Oh, and you've laminated. It's paper and you've laminated.
Well, I got my niece to help me.
Yes.
So she coloured it, and then I've got photographs of some artists that I can put around it.
Oh, lovely.
A bit of description of what they do.
Dan's mum is also here, and I'll ask her what she is up to with her granddaughter Viva.
Good job, Viva. I think that's
well
enough
done.
glue now.
So what is this a photo of?
This is Viva,
This is
and
Viva
she's
dressed
been a
as a
fireman.
firefighter. It's about gender roles and not putting gendered stereotype names onto.
Would you like some?
Oh, no, so you've got these hands here that say I can be a stunt person, I can be a firefighter, I can be a business person.
Fireman or a policeman.
Yes, yeah.
That sort of thing. And both need a gender. Why do we have to put a gender on titles?
Yes.
She loves being a firefighter, so.
Now I'm asking Sonia Zamantis what she has installed. Have you finished putting yours up?
Yeah,
Do you
I
want me
have.
to come and have a look at it?
Oh, yeah.
About
So
it?
I've done this,
All
and
right.
I've done those too.
Oh, okay. So have you done this? Oh, have you done Boys Will Be Boys?
Yeah.
Now that's really interesting. I just noticed Boys Will Be Boys, and I was going, oh, did a boy put there, or what? Or is a girl? What's that about?
It's about challenging gendered language.
Yeah.
And these were done from workshops about challenging gendered language. So people came up with their own language.
And that was at a workshop, and then
lots of workshops. Yeah.
Ah, will
So
we
that was
go
all
and read
last
them?
year.
So where did you do the workshop?
So the workshop. Oh, I did 10 of them. That were.
Sonia's project is called The Other List. It's a type of bunting. There are many pennant flags pegged along strings. Each flag is painted by a workshop participant, and they have words on them in various languages. They are the result of many workshops which were run by Sonia, which examine gendered language, which is taken for granted, but which continues to support everyday patriarchal structures. So it says hormonal, it says lady stuff.
Smile more.
Oh, that's a classic,
sweet.
isn't
Yeah,
it?
there was a
Smile
few
more,
of those
sweetie,
actually.
darling,
Yeah.
sexy.
Hello, beautiful, how are you?
Oh, yeah.
Women can't drive, you're too sensitive, kick like a girl.
Yeah, so those
Classics.
things that you throw at girls.
Yeah, that people,
to
that goes
affect their
unchallenged,
behaviour?
yeah.
Yeah.
And no one questions them, but then when you look at them all colourful and bright, you start thinking about, actually.
Yeah, and so they painted onto canvas.
Yeah,
and they're
so-
little triangular banners, and you've got wire through
Yeah,
there.
wire. Yeah, they were recycled fabrics, so I kind of inherited a whole heap of flags like that, and I turned them into a project. Yeah.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, I know. I like that because I wouldn't have planned for it to. I started experimenting with flags with that one. Boys Will Be Boys.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of like testing out the idea of what would it look like if you get sort of words that are kind of demeaning, but people use them every day without thinking about them.
Yes.
Oh,
because it's an excuse.
I know,
It's
but there's a lot of
boys
conversations about be like this. A lot of protests be like this, so directive.
Yes,
But
yes.
it's the undercurrent that gets overlooked. So I wanted to
Yes.
kind of focus on the undercurrent a bit. So I experimented with that, but then I got given all these flags and an opportunity to run a workshop. So I just kept
Why Sonia called this project the other list is because it's the other list of words that people use that they don't think about. She said the workshops were enjoyable because people were able to write their words onto the flags using masking tape and then paint over and around the tape and peel it off to reveal the words. It's a process that allows everyone to enjoy painting and have success while also thinking about the issue of gendered language.
Gorgeous.
Portrait of someone.
I reckon put them together.
Do you reckon?
Yeah,
too?
next to each other. Okay.
Hey.
They look great.
Thank
Very good. It feels good.
This noise of people working together reflects much of what the day is about. These projects which find their way here, like Sonia's flags, are often the result of collaborations between people, and today collaboration takes the form of installing together and assisting each other. I have a chat to Dan's partner about why he is here. So I'm just interested in, like some of the partners came today and so they're hanging around watching it all, climbing up ladders and helping.
It's great fun.
So were you here last year as well?
Sure was, yeah. This is our third year for me and Dan's and I. And it's been lovely. I love getting involved, mixing up the glue overnight. And watching Dan's, come to the realisation of her work and seeing, she was so excited when she came up with the title for this particular one.
Yeah.
Equality.
Ah.
Equality.
Is that what this
particular one's called Equality.
Which is a big. It's a big paste up.
It's a big paste up. It's a virtual quilt, I guess you might call it. So she reached out to a bunch of active female artists on socials and got them to contribute to the patchwork quilt.
Oh, to contribute what the text is.
That's right, to contribute with the text.
Yeah.
So she also found some quotes to add to the quilt. But also some visual, some visual work.
There's a cartoon and there's a drawing.
That's right. Yeah. There's a few visual elements there.
Oh, and I've just noticed she's in the paste.
Yeah, Dan's is holding the quilt.
She's holding the quilt.
She's holding behind, so it's bringing together the collaborative work of artists from around the world too. There's a couple of Americans up there and a couple of British artists. And there's one up there at the top. I think that one's called like Badass Patchwork or something like that. I think that's what she's called on Instagram.
I'll have a look at it.
I think it's Badass Patchwork.
Who's done that embroidery?
Boys. That's the boys will be boys.
Yeah.
And crossed out the boys, and so boys will be held accountable for their fucking actions.
Yes, she has got her name there.
And there's a Margaret Atwood quote up there. Men are afraid that women will laugh at them, and women are afraid that men will kill them. Which has a real heavy weight to it.
Larissa McFarlane has arrived and she's installing one of her signature paste-ups, which are life-size images of her doing handstands, which she does for pain relief. So she's doing a handstand, and on her cardigan it reads, "Disabled women are still calling for access to work, education, health, control over their bodies and freedom from violence and abuse." Yeah, so it's a black and white paste-up photocopied, but she's coloured in socks and the cardi with purple and green and white, the suffragette colours. Yay! Wonderful. So much more than I imagined. I've had this strange insight into the many ways in which Hosier Lane is not so comfortable for many women to come and install in, and aspects of public space which might prevent women from making street art regularly. But on the other hand, we did come and install a lot of street art today. I have found out how so very important gathering together is. For most of the people here, the gathering together was the main catalyst for this install. The gathering allowed them to celebrate International Women's Day with their artwork.
think we need to rethink how we're seeing street art. I mean, street art was being defiant, so I think we're being a bit soft.
Yes.
So I reckon, I think this event is just to remind us to be a bit more defiant and bring back, what's important.
And you've had conversations here while you've been
I was just
posting
going to
up.
say that. Like, certainly when I was posting up this one, people really were stopping and very open to have a chat, curious, and then, got reminded it was International Women's Day, and that was sort of the rationale for being here. So that was really good. I actually didn't expect that. I sort of thought people would just walk past. But that was good, good conversations.
I think it's important that women take their little part of public space. I think it's important that women be seen to be taking their part of the public space.
And all of the International Women's Day installers at Hosier Lane for their insightful interviews. If this podcast has raised any issues for you which you might want to talk to somebody about, you can call RESPECT, the National Sexual Assault and Domestic Family Violence Counselling Service, on 1800 737 732. Or you can call Beyond Blue's support service on 1300 22 4636. All music on this program is written and performed by Rosie Eve and is available on your favourite listening platforms, SoundCloud, Bandcamp and Spotify. Music used in this podcast today has been Times Are Hard and I Saw You. Times Are Hard, written and performed by Rosie Eve, arrangement by Rosie Eve, engineered by Connor Ross, ukulele and vocals Rosie Eve, keyboards and piano Angus Gray, drums Reginald Alders King, guitars and bass Connor Ross, additional backing vocals Amanda Ong, Max McConnell, Sarah M, George and Cindy Zhang. I Saw You is written and performed by Rosie Eve, recorded and mixed by Francis Fogliani. Thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.